Hey guys, what is up? It's Rxd Coach here today, and today I'm making a video on explaining maybe why you're not getting stronger from your training program. So whenever we're doing a strength training program or we're just training and we're looking to get a result from the activities and the exercises that we're performing and doing, we need to kind of have some background and understanding on what are the things that actually create a change in your physiology to actually make you stronger. So first thing we need to understand is that there's an adaptation to training. So anytime that you're training, you're lifting weights. So let's say we have an example, you're doing bicep curls or maybe you're doing deadlifts, right? So the first time you do that, your body has to adapt to the fact that you're doing an activity that maybe it's not used to doing. So if you never do deadlifts, you never do bicep curls or whatever activity you do, your body has to adapt to that. So in that adaptation, there's going to be a couple of different things that are going to occur. There's a physiological adaptation, which just means that your muscles have to adapt, your spine, your ligaments, your joints, everything has to adapt to the fact that you're lifting a load, that it could be light, medium, heavy, etc. Second thing is that there's a neurological adaptation that occurs. So your body has to start realizing, okay, like I need to exert power, strength to be able to lift this thing. And your body starts gauging how much power it needs to be able to exert to be able to help you lift the thing. There's a new, like a muscle coordination type thing happening where your body has to adapt and learn the movement patterns. So there's, you're building muscle memory and all these sorts of different things. So in a really simple layman's term, you have to adapt to the activity that you're doing, right? So you do a new activity, you adapt to it. Once you've adapted to it, now we can actually start playing around with, once you've learned the movement, now you can start playing around with things like, okay, what is the volume of training that I'm doing in that movement look like? So for example, let's say that you do deadlifts. It's very possible that maybe you do something like 5 sets of 5 pretty often in your deadlift program, or let's say that you're a CrossFitter and you do like a really pretty standard sort of workout like 21, 15, 9 deadlifts. And let's say that every time that comes up, you always do deadlifts at 100 kilos because that's just the weight that the workout prescribes. Now, one of the reasons why people become stagnant in their strength is that they adapt to the load or the required amount of work, and they don't progress from that required amount of work. Meaning, if you always did the same exercise for the same amount of reps for the same weight at the gym, then you would never get any stronger because your body would adapt to that. And once it's adapted to that, it doesn't need to get any stronger because the adaptation's already occurred. However, if you were to up the weight or up the amount of reps you do or etc., then your body would need to adapt again, and then it would become stronger again. So the same thing would happen in a CrossFit type scenario, where let's say that you're always doing a really popular workout like Diane, which is 21, 15, 9 deadlifts and handstand push-ups. And let's say that deadlifts always come up in 45 to 55 reps, which is kind of pretty common in CrossFit. Like deadlifts generally at that sort of weight appear around that sort of rep range. If you always do the same weight, if you always do 100 kilos, or if you always do 70 kilos, if you're a female, or if you always do like whatever weight you normally do, let's say that every time that comes up, you only ever do 40 kilos. Then after the first, second, maybe third exposure to that, your body's adapted to that, and now it needs more load in some sense. You need to overload something for you to create a new adaptation. So now let's think about how can you create a new adaptation from training. So the adaptation can come in a couple of different ways. A really simple way of looking at it is you could create a new adaptation by increasing the amount of reps you do. You could create a new adaptation by increasing the amount of weight that you do, or you could create a new adaptation by increasing the frequency in which you lift it. So let's say that whenever there's a set of 21, you always break it up into 11 and 10. Increasing the frequency within the training session would be something like, now you do 21 reps in a row rather than taking these big breaks. Then you could also increase, think about, how the time period, meaning how often are you deadlifting? Do you deadlift once a week? Do you deadlift twice a week? Do you deadlift 3 times a week? Once you played around with all of those variables, then we can start looking at things like load. And this comes from a pretty basic strength and conditioning principle, which is the progressive overload principle, which is just that if we can adapt to a weight, we want to start progressively overloading that weight bit by bit. So if you always do 100 kilos to get stronger, you would need to start maybe doing 102.5 kilos every time that you do deadlifts, and then maybe 105 kilos, and then maybe 107.5 kilos, etc. Now, something to think about as to why maybe you haven't gotten stronger in your training program, that you know some of these concepts of adaptation, frequency, volume, etc. Start thinking like, do you always do the same weight in the training session? Like every time that you do an exercise, like a bicep curl, do you always lift the same weight? If that's the case, then you're not gonna get stronger. Do you always, do the same weight for your metcons? Do you always use a 16 kilo kettlebell? If that's the case, then maybe you need to go up to a 20 kilo kettlebell or an 18 kilo kettlebell. And the same thing is going to apply to any strength movement, any movement where you're using your muscles. So if you always do your push-ups, and every time that you do push-ups or pull-ups, you always do 5 reps at a time, maybe now you need to do 6 reps at a time. This entire concept could be summarized as like lift heavy shit often. Like lift something heavy, make your body adapt to it, and do that often and repeat it, right? Now, that can be too simple of a concept for some people to understand, but all that means is that make your body adapt to a challenge and do that often. And do that often and then do it over and over again. And over time, you're gonna get stronger if you can be smart about the adaptations that you're taking your body through. So if you don't have a coach or if you don't have a training program, something to think about is that when you start laying out or you start thinking about your training in the future, just be aware that over time, you want to be able to lift more and or do more reps and or do more sets and or increase the frequency of when you're training in the week. And all those things are going to definitely help you towards getting stronger in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it be something as simple as push-ups, pull-ups, or it be something complicated like a muscle up, or improving something like your 1 rep max deadlift or your 1 rep max back squat, all of those things. So if you enjoyed this video today, guys, please subscribe to this channel and share it around if you found this helpful and you think it will help someone else. That's pretty much it. Take care and peace.